Welcome everybody to our third Talk to the Recruiter. Today, we have two recruiters with us. Lauren Bells is here. She's a manager of University Recruiting and Relations for Mission Systems, at Northrop Grumman. And we also have Lucy Wagner. She is from Vanguard. She's the University and Recruiting Partnerships Lead in Human Resources. So thank you both very much for coming and assisting us today. We appreciate it.
Sure.
So
yeah, thanks for having us.
Sure. What I want to do first is just launch a quick poll so our attendees can let us know how many are students, how many are faculty or staff, and we can get a better idea how to gauge the conversation as well. I'd like to just have you each sort of explain your role and what your company does, and then I'll start to ask you some questions for about 30 minutes. And then we will let those that have questions, they can put them in the question and answer pod, and then we will answer those questions for the last half hour of our presentation today, okay? So Lauren, do you want to start and just, introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. And keep me posted if this video feature isn't working. I know it's a little bit trial and error these days with technology, but thanks so much for inviting me today, guys. I am Lauren Bells. I'm located in Arlington, Virginia. And I am a manager. I joined Northrop Grumman actually in October, so still a little under 6 months. But I am a manager on our mission systems team, which is one of 4 sectors that Northrop Grumman has. And we are a leading global security company. We specialize in aerospace and space and cyber, kind of the whole gamut. And we're fortunate right now during this challenging time to be deemed essential. So things have been progressing a little bit differently from a remote delivery standpoint in areas that we can, but we've been fortunate in continuing to stay busy and helping to support, protect our country and our government clients.
Excellent, thank you. Lucy, would you share with us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on our University Recruiting and Partnerships team at Vanguard. My particular role, I'm a lead on our team. So what that means is I'm paired up to a lot of colleges within the Philadelphia region. Our headquarters is right in Malvern, Pennsylvania, and Penn State I'm lucky enough to be paired up with. So I'm typically on campus probably 20 times a semester. You guys might have seen me at some of the career fairs and club events happening on campus. Vanguard, we are one of the largest financial services institutions in the world. We are the leading provider of mutual funds, the second largest provider of exchange traded funds. That being said, I know I'm speaking to the IST school today. So I would like you all to know that Vanguard, just as much as we are financial services, we are just as much an IT firm today because that supports every aspect of our business. So we have about 12,000 employees at our headquarters in Malvern, PA, and 1/3 of those are actually IT employees who work for us.
Excellent, thank you. So the first question that I have for you, and again, for our participants, if you do have questions, you can go ahead and put them in the question and answer pod, and we will get to those shortly. But the first question I have is, how has your organization responded to the COVID-19 in terms of hiring new graduates for full-time positions and or internship roles, both in terms of offers already given and looking forward to offering new roles?
Yeah, I'm happy to start on this one. For Vanguard, we've really been business as usual. Typically for our company, our entry-level roles and our internships, they are competitive. So a lot of times, regardless of what's happening in our current state, we're usually full come February, March, which is right when things started to really shut down. So that was on trend for us this year. So really at this point in time, all of our full-time and our internship opportunities have been filled. And that was not in response as to what's happening right now. That was just business as usual for us. Anyone who was already in that interview process, we followed through with that to its completion, as well as we've gotten really creative with some virtual onboarding for students who will be coming in this summer.
Okay. Have you changed your plans for internships being on-site as opposed to virtual or remote?
That for Vanguard is something that we're thinking through right now. So we don't have any official answer for that. I think our hope is that they can still be done in person, but it's definitely something that we're thinking through.
Okay, thank you. And Lauren?
Yeah, so we actually, echoing Lucy, we do a lot of our hiring in the fall, but we do hire year round. I mean, we continually are winning new work. And so we did have a surge in business that happened really at the start of March, actually, when COVID had kind of started to come into play. So we had actually moved our super days, as we call them, to virtual. So really having just virtual interviews then to consider those full-time candidates for our remaining needs. So I would say that's kind of the adjustment that we've made versus flying students into the office for consideration for those opportunities. From an intern perspective, we've wrapped up all of our intern hiring, and I've been in numerous meetings the last couple of days trying to kind of figure out the steps that we'll take to make some adjustments to our program. I am happy to say that we are moving forward with all of our internships that we've committed to. So our sector alone has committed over 850 interns this summer across the organization. It's over 2,000. And so we are honoring those commitments. We are looking into virtual remote delivery for majority of those, but given the nature of our work, some is required on site for some of those roles, whether it's manufacturing or say those in the cleared environment who work on SCIFs and have clearances. So for those, we're putting in obviously extra measures from a safety perspective. But outside of kind of virtual engagement, we're doing our programming now, having leadership speakers versus in person, now going to be virtual. We're still hopeful that it'll be a favorable experience for our students this summer.
Excellent. So the next question I have for you is, how is your organization dealing with the rapidly changing environment in terms of just adjusting to general hiring practices? Have you made adjustments for the fall? I know you guys both are pretty much on the same page as far as, business as usual for your spring hires and summer internships. What sort of changes or adjustments are you making for the fall, and how will you engage with students moving forward? Or is that sort of in flux?
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of jump in here. I think it's in flux, right? I mean, I think our top priority right now is really making sure that we have a good internship experience for our students. I think for those we've already committed to for full-time opportunities, making sure that we have a virtual onboarding experience that allows them to set them up to succeed as they join. But I know that conversations are happening. I'm on some work streams where we're thinking about virtual engagement even more. So, worst case scenario, what if we can't come to campus? What if students don't come back to campus? How will we continue to fulfill our talent needs? And so we're looking into different technology, particularly I know some of those diversity conferences had gotten canceled, or I think it was NSBE was the one that had been rescheduled for August. What will that look like now that those are such large crowds? Is that going to still be the same? So we're looking at kind of all the different ways that we've engaged with students in the past, whether it's info sessions, career fairs, interviews, diversity conferences, and really trying to think creatively about worst case scenario in the sense that maybe we can't physically see you, but how can we still develop a relationship remotely that'll help students to accomplish their employment goals?
Right. And Lucy, I think we lost Lucy for a second. She'll be back. Technology, all the that will be. You know what? I wanted to ask you too, to follow up on that. How have you been engaging with the students that were in internships or that were already hired at your organization in terms of shifting quickly to a remote workplace? Was that
Yeah.
a transition for them and for your company, or was it a little bit of a bumpy road?
You know, I would say that we're very empathetic to students wanting to, we've reassured them that the opportunity is still there for them to intern with us this summer, which I think they've been obviously grateful for, as we've seen other competitors in our landscape have to scale back or even cancel altogether their programs. So we see a lot of students being grateful about the opportunity still being honored. Understandably, they want to have more information about what it'll look like now, and if there will be adjustments. And I think there has been some frustrations about that information not being forthcoming as quick as they would like. And I think that we're just being super deliberate in kind of making sure that we have a game plan before we prematurely share that with students. So we have been leveraging just traditional methods like email to share updates. We also have been leveraging GroupMe chats. So we have those based on geographies. So that helps to kind of engage students with their peers. It allows us also to really kind of speak to that texting and app preference of receiving information. And then we will be having a couple engagement WebEx events coming up, so that we will be having all hands on deck, kind of answering student questions individually, going over frequently asked questions so that we can be accessible, but do so on a scale, because with 800 plus, it's a little bit difficult to be able to satisfy each of their needs. So really wanting to be there for them, being available and leveraging technology to do that. But yeah, I think we're in the same boat. We share the frustrations of not knowing kind of what tomorrow will bring, and we're having to make some educated guesses. And so that has probably taken a little bit longer than we had hoped, but we're hoping the outcome will make up for it.
Yeah, it's a tricky time. What would your advice be to students that have summer internships, not just at your organization, but at any, that are unsure of where that's going to go? What's going to happen with those internships? Should they reach out to their recruiter? Should they reach out to the organization? Sit tight and wait? What would your advice be?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are not surprised when students are reaching out to us, and I think that's understandable. So I think, doing a touch point with who your contact is at that organization definitely doesn't hurt. I think the important thing is being empathetic to all of the different discussions that are going underway at that organization. So when doing those updates, just wanting to kind of check in and see if there's any update, wanting to have some confidence about my opportunity still being there this summer, and that I can plan accordingly. Please let me know maybe what the timeline is for when we can expect some additional information. Appreciate all you're doing given this challenging environment. And so I think like that type of tone is really appreciative for those of us who are wanting to get information, but wanting to just be cautious about giving accurate information. So I think that that's important. I think especially for those who had made commitments maybe to relocate, or for those who are needing to make housing arrangement commitments like leases for your internships. Candidly, I would try and hold off until you have some definitive information, because a lot of us are moving towards virtual internships. And so that relocation potentially might no longer be necessary. And I think, I would caution about making any financial commitments right now, given some of the uncertainty. So we still will have some students relocate and have to work on site, as I mentioned, because of the cleared work we have available. So I'm not saying that might not be the case, but I think really make sure you have confidence from your organization before making that financial commitment, because we would hate for you to have to suffer some negative repercussions from that.
Thank you. That's some good advice. We've got Lucy.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I'm back. My computer kicked me off, so I'm using my cell phone. Seems to be working fine.
You're great. Yeah.
But
so
Lauren, thanks for taking the questions.
Yeah,
Sure, no problem.
Going to ask you too, Lucy. How are you guys planning to engage moving down the road? I mentioned you both have your interns, ready for the summer and your spring hiring completed. What does it look like for you guys moving forward into the fall as far as engagement goes?
Yeah, so I'd say starting with wrapping up this semester, we're really utilizing all of our virtual platforms to the best of our ability. So we've done, my team in particular has done virtual career fairs, virtual mock interviews, information sessions, Vanguard overviews, virtual interview tips, sessions like today. So we're getting really creative on the virtual side. I would say moving forward into the fall, our hope is that we can be back in person, back on campus and seeing our students face to face. But in reality, I think, if no one can really predict how long this will last or if we'll come back into some sort of state like this. So our team is really thinking through, okay, if we are, signing up for the fairs or these larger events, we need to have some type of virtual backup plan in case we are back in lockdown. So that's something we're trying to think through, is just, if we move forward signing up for the in-person events, how can we at a moment's notice pivot and get that into a virtual setting? So just having that plan B now is something that we're going to have to think through moving forward.
Right. What would your advice be for students who do have an internship, not just your organization, but others, as far as not knowing if that is going to move forward? Should they reach out to their recruiter or their contact at the organization? What's your advice on that?
Yeah, I think we're all in this little bit of an unsettling stage where there's a lot of unknowns ahead of us. I think if your employer's not being proactive and reaching out to you and communicating things that are going on, absolutely, it doesn't hurt to reach out to your contact with that employer and try to get a feel of the next steps moving forward. For us at Vanguard, it's pretty standard that every 2 weeks we're doing our best to reach out to our interns or incoming co-op students who may have been delayed, and just letting them know the latest and what we're thinking through for the summer and upcoming fall start dates. So that would be my advice. If your employer is not actively reaching out to you, I don't think it hurts to reach out to them and just ask and see what's going on. In addition, I think employers are taking into account what their students are looking for. So if you're saying, please give me any type of project work if I can do it virtual, I think that shows that you're taking initiative and you have a desire for the work and the learning that the employer was going to provide to you. But I don't think that would hurt you as a candidate at all.
Right. Did you have students already in internships when we went to remote work this past spring?
Our internships at Vanguard, they're all 10 weeks and they typically start right in the summer on June 1st.
Okay.
We have a separate program with Drexel where we do their co-ops, and they have different spring, summer cycles and fall, winter cycles. So our fall, winter co-op students were actually just finishing up when we went into quarantine. So they were able to finish their project remotely. And then I believe they just mailed their computers back to us. We are actively working through, how we're going to get our spring and summer co-ops up and running, as well as our interns for this summer.
So to both of you again, what would be the biggest advice you could give to a student right now? We know on the employer side of it, it's a day-by-day kind of thing sometimes to figure out what the next step is and what's going to come at you. For students, it must be a very confusing time because they had a set plan on how this whole employment thing was going to go and how they were going to interview and what that looked like and what hiring was going to look like. What's your biggest advice for them today to try and maneuver through these times where things have changed so rapidly?
Yeah, so I'll jump in. A couple of things kind of come to mind is, I think one, I feel for those who maybe their internships have been impacted by this experience. So my advice to those who don't have an internship right now is really kind of try and take on some voluntary work over the summer. Try and show and demonstrate that you've been taking initiative and that you've been proactive. So even if it isn't a paid formal internship, for you to show that you've had some experience that's relatable to the type of work that you want to do. Even if it's something that you're tinkering with, and you're wanting to develop a program and doing some software development, then really kind of put some time into that so that you can have that to show that, you know, you made the best use of your time given the constraints and the changing environment. So I think that initiative and proactiveness is going to be really important because I think that us as employers are going to be understanding that it's not been a traditional summer experience for most. I would say those who do have a commitment for an internship, I think what's really going to be important is just your professionalism during the time over the summer, particularly how you communicate via email. Email will probably be, you know, the biggest you know, reliance that you'll have in terms of delivering your work and, you know, communicating with your team. And so making sure that that's polished and that you demonstrate some maturity there. I think as well with how you handle conversations and that you're prepared for calls, because some of that water cooler chit chat that, you know, we take for granted, helping us get to know people a little bit better and their personality might be something that we are going to be a little bit short of. So really making the most of the touch points that you'll have over the summer is going to be, you know, really important.
Excellent. Thank you. And Lucy?
Yeah, I would reiterate everything that Lauren said, just really being proactive. If you have an internship, showing that professionalism, reaching out to your coworkers, your new team to introduce yourself and maybe set up some one-on-one video conferences. To any student who, you know, maybe their internship's now not moving forward or you were unable to get an internship, on top of, you know, just trying to find any work that you can do creatively, I would also think through how can you continue to professionally develop yourself and show a desire for continued learning without the you know, direction of a formal employer over the summer. So, you know, if you're unable to have an internship, maybe there's some virtual conferences that you can attend to help develop yourself, or maybe there's a course that you can take. I know at Vanguard we utilize lynda.com a lot. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but that's a great resource with just thousands and thousands of different courses you can take. So to reiterate, Lauren, just showing that initiative and proactiveness to continue to develop yourself, whether it's formal with an employer or informal on your own, I think that's going to help set students apart moving into their junior, senior years.
So as we start to move into interviewing in the fall, and if we still remote, which is a possibility, what type of technology will you use and what will that look like for students? Instead of having that face-to-face, you know, interview process, what do you think that may look like as far as technology goes and process? Yeah.
I can jump in on that one. At Vanguard, we use Microsoft Teams very heavily. All my team meetings, team huddles, I even use it for mock interviews with candidates. It's all through Microsoft Teams. It's fairly simple to use. It's very similar to Zoom, what we're using today, where we'd be able to see each other on the screen. So that's what we would use if we do move to that fully virtual interview platform. And we've already started doing that for a lot of the candidates who have onboarded in the past 2 months here.
Good, good. And I'm going to come back to that in a second, but go ahead, Lauren.
You know, I honestly think that there's going to be some great new technology that's going to come out of this pandemic that will really probably influence what we do in the fall. I'm always amazed by what crops up from technologists, you know, within a 3-month time frame. So, you know, I think that this will prompt a lot of entrepreneurs. So, you know, I don't think that there is a silver bullet right now with the existing technology, but then again, you know, I have my work cut out for me with educating myself in the weeks ahead. But I think, you know, we're leaning on WebEx, we're leaning on Zoom. We have a Brazen platform that we use for career fairs on our experience side of the house that I think we're going to be looking into maybe leveraging for undergraduate and campus recruitment needs. So I think it's a little bit premature about what we're going to be using, but yeah, we'll definitely be relying on it a lot more than we have in the past.
So, but that goes to my next question, which is students interviewing through video conferencing or on video in any means. what is the advice you can give them? Because it can be even more unnerving to be on camera as opposed to a face-to-face, and even that's nerve-wracking. So what kind of advice can you give to them, do's and don'ts for students when they're preparing for a video interview?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of advice to give for that, but mainly treat it exactly the same as a regular interview where you're in person. You still want to dress professional from head to toe in case you stand up or the camera moves. You don't want to have your PJ bottoms on. And most importantly, I think is setting the stage for the interview so that you feel like you're in a professional, comfortable setting. I always tell students, make sure you're in a quiet space in your house. You know, during this time it's tough because you might have dogs who bark when the mailman comes, or a younger sibling around, or a child. So set the stage, try to find a quiet space. On top of that, try to make sure you have a neutral background behind you. I think we all get so used to living in our homes or dorm room. Your roommate could have a really, inappropriate poster that you may not want an employer to see, but you're just used to it because you've lived there for so long. So just be conscious of the setting around you. On top of that, my last tip is be aware of your facial expressions and your mannerisms because the employer can still see you. One example, I was actually on a virtual interview with my boss a few weeks ago, right when we went into the quarantine, and we went ahead and debriefed after, and she said to me, "Did you notice the candidate was fidgeting the whole time? He was shaking. At one point he tossed his water bottle in the trash like a basketball and turned his back to us completely." And it was one of my first interviews that I've formally done. So I was nervous too, just like the candidate. I didn't notice, but it was a huge factor for my hiring manager. So all things to be very conscious of and aware of.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Lauren?
Yeah, no, I think she gave some great examples. I would also just say the power of pause. So I think particularly with video interviews, students feel compelled to quickly fill the silence. And so this would be, advice even in a live interview of just, taking a pause. That's a good question. Let me think about that for a second and collect your thoughts before you feel like you need to just fill the silence. So I think that's one of the biggest things. And I would also say maybe when scheduling the interview, I've seen this happen again and again, in the event that I have technical difficulty, is there another way to reach to you? So, and that might just be something, even sharing here's my phone number in the event that, the video interviewer can't reach me, here's my cell phone, I'm going to be available via this means as well. So maybe having a backup plan figured out as well so that you're still making the best use of the time and then foreseeing any of the challenges that you might have.
Yeah, I think also making sure when you guys send out information with that link and, the phone numbers, that kind of thing, make sure you have those, make sure there's a task you guys ask for them to do beforehand that they are
Right.
done, and not just assume that it's just a video call. There might be other things they need to do. That's great. I have a few questions and we're going to go to Sue Chappell, who is our employer engagement manager at Penn State U Park, and Zach Folder, who is the Western Region Employer Engagement and Career Specialist for the Commonwealth campuses. They're going to go back and forth and answer some questions. So students, if you have questions, please feel free to put those in the question and answer portion. And we have two now, but I have a lot more too to throw in there. But Sue, if you want to start.
Absolutely. We actually have three because one's in the chat. So I'm going to start with that one.
Okay.
Question is, what kind of platforms are you reviewing for technology to connect with students? And I know everybody mentioned a few of them, but if you wouldn't mind just kind of going through the different ones that you use for different purposes to help our students be more familiar.
Yeah, I can start on that one. On our recruiting team, when we connect with the schools, we'll try to use whatever the school is using because typically that works best for the students. So if the school can set it up for us, that's a plus on Vanguard's end. But let's say you're just doing a virtual interview with us, we would use our technology, and that again is Microsoft Teams. That's what we strictly use internally and externally when we're doing our interviewing. It's very similar to Zoom or any other video chat technology that you're on. The capabilities are pretty much the same, where you can share your screen, you can see each other on video, there's a chat segment, and we've had a lot of success and hardly any issues using that externally thus far. So Microsoft Teams is really our primary one at Vanguard.
Wonderful.
I would just say Zoom, which I think is not a surprise. I think that we're seeing that across a lot of campuses. And so I think that one is the most prevalently used across the schools that we have relationships with. I think we're still using Skype in some ways as well, as a backup to that. But otherwise, as I mentioned, we'll have to see kind of what comes to fruition in the next couple of weeks. But I would say Zoom is the one that we've been most reliant on.
And both of you are using real-time interviewing as opposed to any recorded interviews?
Correct.
Wonderful. Great.
Our next question comes regarding students' LinkedIn profile. So has the new emphasis on virtual engagement shifted your focus to a student's LinkedIn profile at all? And if so, or just generally speaking, what do you typically like to see on a LinkedIn profile specifically for an IST student?
You know, I think that recruiters aren't necessarily leveraging LinkedIn as much to review profiles, but I think hiring managers are. So when they have interviews scheduled, I know many of them are looking and kind of trying to educate themselves before they connect with a student about kind of who this person is, getting to know their background a little bit more. So I almost think that that's almost a first impression for a lot of interviewers to kind of look and see what they have displayed there. So I think in terms of what people are looking for, just like they are in a resume, is really kind of, you know, what was the nature of work, what was the impact that you had, and then what were the measurable results. So I think a lot of times the mistake that students make is, I did XYZ. Okay, so you did XYZ, but like, what was the impact to the organization and why was that important? And so I think it's really that impact component that is really important for students to emphasize when they're thinking about how to summarize their experience. Should it be on LinkedIn or on their resume?
Yeah, I would agree with that, Lauren. I think that's great advice. Something else to think through is LinkedIn can be a really great way to increase your professional development and visibility with employers right now. We're all really missing that in person on campus. There were hundreds and hundreds of employers who were supposed to be on Penn State's campus in April who are no longer going to be there. So that's one way to really be proactive, and, you know, even starting with reaching out to Lauren and myself saying, hey, you know, I was on Zoom today, I saw you guys, it was great to connect, can I get a little bit more information about the company and your opportunities? So that's a great way to build out your professional network, and just be proactive to see what is happening with employers. Maybe they're hosting a virtual event that you can learn about through LinkedIn. I know recently LinkedIn did their own virtual career fair to help students connect to employers. So there's a lot of resources on that as well, but definitely does serve as a first impression for a lot of hiring managers. I agree with Lauren on that.
Wonderful. Our next question is for the students who are looking for an internship summer 2021. Tell us a little bit about the internship experiences that are available for IST students at your organizations.
Yeah, so I would say, you know, traditionally ours is a 10-week program. And so generally folks start within the May or June timeframe, and IST students really cut across all of the different components of our organization. So without getting into too much nomenclature, but we have, an aeronautics team, we have a space team, we have a mission systems team, and we have a defense team. And so, a lot of that stuff can make use of those within the IST degree program, whether it's doing penetration testing or cyber work or software development. Really that cuts across pretty much all of those different sector organizations. So, I would say an opportunity is to really connect with those who intern over the summer. We have, over 2,000, and I know we have over 40 something coming from Penn State. I mean, really do your due diligence with those who are going to be interning with us this summer, just like you would in any other traditional summer. And then really just be ready to kind of really connect early in the fall. We're going to be hungry to meet students by the time fall rolls around. And so really be ready to kind of present yourself and really kind of make the most use, as we mentioned earlier on this topic, whether you have an internship this past summer or whether you're going to be working on kind of personal projects, really help to position your sell message and your elevator speech.
Yeah, I would say at Vanguard, similarly, our program, it's called our College to Corporate Internship Program at Vanguard. It's also 10 weeks, fully paid. It typically starts either May 30th or right at June 1st and wraps up that first or second week in August. We have 5 different areas that you can apply to at Vanguard, IT being one of them. The other 4 are more concentrated on the business side, so I'll focus on IT. If we do have any students who are interested in business, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. We can talk more offline. But the IT internship, the way it works is at Vanguard, we really try to pick our interns before we just place you somewhere over the summer. So you could really be working anywhere across IT within the company. Some different areas include technology operations, application development are some focus areas for our interns, but our hiring managers, they really do a great job of getting to know you and your skill set and try to pair your interests up to our business needs as well. Along with the internship, if you do live over a 50-mile threshold from our campus in Malvern, PA or North Carolina, we will actually pay to put you up in housing over those 10 weeks for the summer. Just like Lauren said, those opportunities should be posted at some point this summer, June at the earliest, August at the very latest, and that's a great time to apply. If you think about it, a lot of employers follow that schedule. The reason you want to apply so early is because all of our openings are available when those postings first come up. But once September, October, November pass by, we've already done a lot of interviewing and hiring for those roles. So try to apply as soon as you can once you see those postings pop up.
Lucy, what years are you looking for? Are you looking at juniors, seniors, sophomores in particular?
Yeah, that's a great question. In full transparency, at Vanguard, we really try to focus on juniors. The reason being is we hope that it's a great experience over the summer and we can make you a full-time offer before you start your senior year to come back with us summer 2022 would be for this upcoming class. Not to say we haven't had a small handful of sophomores every year, but if you are a freshman or sophomore, keep that in mind. Our internships are really competitive and you're competing with juniors who probably have, a few more classes or an additional internship under their belt.
Lauren, did you want to just?
Yeah, so we actually have high school freshmen, sophomore, juniors. So we actually have kind of a plethora, and we have a lot of returning interns year over year. So those that started with us as a freshman go through until they graduate, and then obviously join us full time, and some of those go through the clearance process as well. So as a result of interning with us, I would say one other thing about making the most of the summer is by the time you get to the fall, I think sometimes that students rely on some of those in-person opportunities to kind of connect and better understand the nature of work. Now would be a great time for you to get some of those questions answered in advance so that you can kind of hone in on the nature of work that you want to pursue, and you're not going to be asking the same question that hundreds of other students are going to be in the fall. So if you could network with folks who are current employees, who are current interns, and really get a feel for if that's a good fit for what you want to do, you know, now would be a great time so that you don't have to be competing with so many other people asking the same question come fall.
Right.
So Nicole, there are a few questions left here in the chat, but for the most part, they've been addressed. They've been really dealing about, you know, best way to apply for an internship, timeline of when to apply and stuff like that, which I know was just addressed.
Let's see, I'm trying to go them too. So do you see anything that's standing out that we didn't hit?
The only one, I'm going to bring up the one because it's kind of interesting. I know we're talking more about technology, internships, and opportunities today, but we do have a student who is studying psych and is hoping to go into IO psychology, industrial organizational. And they asked, with everything that is going on in the world, what do you believe is the best way to get an internship in the business world and getting that early start that so many students crave? So especially Vanguard, you talked about the fact that you don't necessarily take a younger candidate. That's less frequent, but students really know that it's going to up their opportunities down the line. So what are your thoughts?
I'd say one tip for Vanguard, you know, getting that early start. If you are a freshman or a sophomore on the call, Vanguard, we have a unique offer called Explore Day. My team actually hosts this day, but it's specifically geared for freshmen and sophomores. So it's a one-day externship. We host it probably about 5 or 6 times throughout the year. Typically our next one would come up in August, but I'm not sure what that would look like if we would still be able to host students in person. But it's a one-day externship where you come visit our headquarters. For Penn State students, Malvern is our closest location. So it would be Malvern where you spend the day. That's a day where you get to learn from a lot of employees who have gone through our internship programs or recently graduated and are full-time hires with us. So if you're thinking about, you know, how can I start to create a bond with the company early, that's a great day to try to attend. We actually invite a lot of our HR recruiters, hiring managers to network with all of our students over lunch. So that can also be some pretty powerful face time if you're planning to apply in the fall. So I would definitely recommend taking a look into that. Stay connected with me. Again, my team hosts those days, so I can keep you updated on all the details. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and we can keep in touch about that.
One other thing that just kind of is a little bit off topic but related is that I am a part of the Washington, D.C., my alumni community from my college that I had graduated from. And I'm in touch with I went to another Big Ten school. And so there's a huge presence, obviously, of Penn Staters. For those of you who are now at home and who are in other areas of the country, connect with your local alumni chapter. I mean, that would be great people to begin networking with, you know, and they might have some work available for you as well, but it also allow you to kind of feel a greater connection to your campus community, even though you're not physically there, you know, back in Happy Valley.
What about virtual career fairs? Have either of your organizations participated in them? Or, I mean, fall is usually, you know, a big career fair time. And if we are not back, what is your feeling on fall career fairs and going virtual with them? And how is the best way for students to interact with you if they're participating in a virtual career fair? Because it is such a different environment from what they're used to.
Yeah, we just did actually. There was a SEC ACC career fair maybe 3 weeks ago, and I think there was another Big Ten one this past week. Candidly, the platforms that the organizations use vary, and that also is in terms of effectiveness and in terms of candidate experience. So it's been interesting to have us kind of educate ourselves gearing up for an event. You know, and essentially folks come in, it's a little bit of a chat group, and then they ask specific questions. I think most often the questions are, how do I apply? And what nature of roles are available. And so, I think that being a little bit more specific in your engagement, because likely that stuff that's on a landing page, like these are the roles that we're recruiting for, and here's the link to apply. So differentiating yourself a little bit about, this is the type of work that I enjoy. Can you give me an example of something that's relevant to, where that might be applicable in your organization? Or showing that you took the time to kind of do some research on our website and, are then using an icebreaker of, I wanted to follow up, I saw this on your website, and ask a relevant question like that. Because generally what I've seen ad nauseum is just, how do I apply? And I'm an IST major, what do you have to offer? And so it's just not as much of an engaging conversation, nor does it really show a lot of initiative on the behalf of the student.
Yeah, we hear that a lot from recruiters. It's to be prepared when you go in, to have done your research. Lucy, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I would also say I did the Big Ten Fair 2 weeks ago, and like Lauren said, every platform's different. So I know Brazen, they will actually put their own restrictions on it where you can only have 3 or 4 chats at a time for 10 minutes with a student. When we did the Big Ten one, it was really a free-for-all. Now as a student, just try to be mindful of that. During the Big Ten one, there was a general chat, and then you could chat personally with the recruiter. So at one point, Vanguard, we had 300 people in our chat room, and we had 3 people on our team responding. So you can picture that gets very overwhelming. So we had a lot of students asking the same identical questions, but they weren't really reading the general chat and going through that. So if you have a general chat as a resource, try to use that to answer your questions first, I'd say, before going to the recruiters. Or if you're really trying to make that strong connection, maybe reach out to a recruiter and say, hey, I acknowledge you're really busy right now. Is there a good time maybe next week to connect with you on a phone call or personal video chat? I was really interested in your company. So just acknowledging that maybe they're scrambling to respond to a lot of other people at the same point, that can really help you stand out. I actually had 2 Penn State students do that. So kudos to Penn State. And we were able to connect a few days later when I just had more time to dedicate.
Excellent. And as far as applying goes, I know we have Nittany Lion Careers, so we always steer students to that posting system to find jobs that are available. And of course, you both post on Nittany Lion Careers. If a student has a resume, what is the best way for them to get that resume to your organization or to recruiters like yourself?
Yeah. Go ahead, Lauren.
Go for it, Lucy.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I would say leverage local. So I think, we have designated recruiters who have alignments to different universities. I know Stephanie Randall is the person who does for Penn State. And she's really the one looking out for those students and advocating for them and developing those relationships. And so, she really is best positioned then, even if there's an opportunity that maybe there's a team that isn't recruiting on campus, that you've seen another opportunity for a different location, she really can help make that introduction. So versus probably, I've seen some students be really eager and look up on LinkedIn and contact every single person who's a recruiter within the organization and try and see, I think really the best use of your time and effort is to really kind of leverage those local contacts first, because they really, are looking out for you. So I think that's the best piece of advice I can give. I've seen the most success with students who leverage that channel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, for Vanguard, you definitely have to go on to either Nittany Lion Careers or our website. It's just vanguardjobs.com
Right.
to formally apply. So make sure you get that step in there. But as far as your resume, it's great with the internet. We can push out 300 job applications in an hour, which is great, but sometimes that can also be a black hole. So my advice for students, if just like Lauren, if you know an alumni who works at the company, or you've made a connection with myself or another recruiter, or just any employee that you have a personal relationship, I would say send your resume to that person and ask if they can email the hiring manager or the recruiter for that role, just to help get your application top of mind and resurfaced. And also that might go through as an employee referral, so that your name's back at the top of the chart and top of mind for recruiters when they are looking through just a high volume of applications. So formally apply, and then any contact you have, get your resume to that person as well.
Great. Thank you very much. So did I hit on that last question, I think, without even knowing it?
Yeah, they were asking about specifically full-time positions. Can everybody talk a little bit about their current full-time hiring needs?
Yeah, we touched a little bit on the beginning, but do you guys want to just recap what kind of positions you are hiring for?
Yeah, so I think for the time being, I think both of us have said a little bit, correct me if I'm wrong, Lucy, that things have kind of trickled down. And I know that for the remaining needs that I currently have available, they're more at the graduate level, so more experienced candidates. So I don't have any needs right now for May 2020 grads. But I think what's important is that, and I'm not sure, Lucy, if this is the same with you, but we have two distinctive hiring organizations internally. We have our campus recruiting team, and we have our experienced recruiting team. And so, I'm looking for campus professionals, but once that, graduation date passes or gets really close, like we are, a month out, you start becoming eligible for just-in-time hiring needs, which is what our experienced recruiting team goes and considers candidates for. And their needs are all posted on the website. So, I really think that even if you might get discouraged maybe from the lack of needs that Lucy and myself have right now, that's not to say that there aren't needs presenting themselves on the experience side of the house, which we just are somewhat kind of a little bit siloed, candidly, in most organizations, and the three that I've worked for. Once you get close to graduation or have graduated, then you kind of fall into that other bucket of recruiters who are sourcing for those needs.
Lauren, real quickly as a follow-up. So when you talk about all of those opportunities are posted on the website, your website or Nittany Lion Careers?
Our website. Yeah. So our website. So I would say experienced recruiting doesn't necessarily always leverage school resources. I mean, they're just kind of putting those things out into the atmosphere and hoping to get some additional pipelines. So yeah, I would say look on the company's website for all of their available immediate needs, which likely are not always reflected at the campus level.
And just so you know, I'm sure you know this, but just as a reminder, we do encourage our alumni to go into careers for experienced opportunities, and many companies do post there for experienced hires. And we also give them a second look in Lion Link. So we can elevate the visibility of positions that are open to experienced alum, just so you know. It's
Sure.
fine. Yeah, wonderful. Lucy.
Yeah, I'll piggyback Lauren on that. On a similar note, I think there's a few things to think through. If anyone on the call is a graduate student or a non-traditional student who already has experience, Vanguard has a really large number of more mid to senior level jobs that we're still very actively hiring for. The best place for that, same with Lauren, is our website, not necessarily Nittany Lion Careers, because they're more mid-level, senior level opportunities. So our website is vanguardjobs.com. So that's a great resource to look at. Recent graduates who, if you're a senior and you don't already have a role, I would still think through kind of that non-traditional hiring that's off course to the traditional hiring season where you're starting in June, right? So that was actually, I was one of those hires at Vanguard. I worked for a short period of time at a different financial firm when I first graduated, and I was hired at Vanguard in February. So that's something to think through as well. I know Lauren touched on that. There could be a role that we have, we haven't predicted a large surge in jobs, but there could be an entry-level role that all of a sudden we need 50 hires for come September. So I would say, you know, if not the company of your dreams on June 1st, I wouldn't count that employer out, because there can always be a surge of undergraduate roles that come out, just not on that same exact hiring calendar that we're all used to. So I would keep your eye out for that. I saw success personally with that at Vanguard, coming in at a different time than a lot of other college graduates. Sue, keep me honest. Did I answer all of the aspects of that question?
It was perfect. It was
Okay.
perfect. Also, thank you for the perspective on the experience postings. That's actually helpful for us to know.
We have one more question, and then we're going to wrap up. And I did want to say, and it kind of goes in tow with this question as well, that I'll get to Zach. But one of the things we've been hearing from recruiters over the last few weeks is flexibility, which is you may not find that dream job you wanted because it's not available, but having that flexibility to be able to move your skills into another area and see those opportunities is going to be really key, I think, for organizations to be able to see a student's adaptability and flexibility at this time. So Zach, you want to give the last question?
Yes, absolutely. So this one comes from a student. It says, it is difficult for me as an IST student to obtain a local internship because of the competitive nature of where I am located. I'm trying to find a local internship because I am supporting myself. So do you have any advice for students going through something similar to what this student is experiencing, or that are, you know, struggling financially at the current moment?
One tip I would say, I think so many companies are experimenting with a lot of creative platforms on moving work virtually. I know just personally, I've thought through, you know, is this a state that we're going to continue in despite, you know, what's happening in the world with coronavirus? Is this something that a lot of companies might continue because it's saving travel dollars, or it's saving dollars on, you know, rent for their buildings? I think the question I would ask that student is, does it necessarily have to be local? Could you expand your search and potentially do something that's virtual, that's not local to you, where you're still getting the dollars that you need in order to support yourself? Because that might help just in this environment right now, and having a lot more options if you can open it up to, you know, companies who aren't necessarily local to you. So that's a question I would ask.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think that there's a huge gig economy out there. So for you to be able to kind of freelance your skills, and maybe, you know, it's not a traditional 10-week program, maybe it's, you know, a week project or 2-week project, you know, that's something. I think that, again, going back to, you know, maybe earning some money doing something that isn't directly related to the nature of work that you want to do from a financial perspective, just to keep yourself afloat for this summer, as we think about those who are seeking internships. So, you know, making your money and being able to support yourself financially, but then on the side, you know, being able to keep up your skills. Lucy had mentioned, you know, there's some great certifications out there. There's some professional training, and there's some side projects that you can kind of just hone your skills. I think that still shows people that, wow, this person is balancing professional development as well as being, you know, full-time employed, you know, because they're needing to meet their financial needs. So I think that there's a lot of flexibility. I think it's all with kind of how you position yourself.
Great. Thank you guys so very much. We're at the top of the hour. You did a fantastic job, and I so appreciate all the information you've given our students and our staff. We had over 71 people on the today, so that was fantastic. 26 of those were students, so that was wonderful. I'm going to share my screen and have your contact information and your names and titles in case students are interested in reaching out to you. So hang on for that, everybody. But again, thank you very much. We so appreciate it. And everybody, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me as well. Okay. And there you go. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.